Oh, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Light Lessons with Sierra. This week is our 14th episode, and we are talking about the light lesson. Be curious. Be curious. So the reason this light lesson is in the pack and why I selected this light lesson of all the phrases or words that I could possibly put into the light lessons is because I think it's really, really invaluable as a human to stay curious about why we're on the planet, what we are up to, what life is trying to show us, what life is presenting us with as an opportunity, as obstacles. Stay curious about the other humans that are here with us on the planet. Staying curious about how we feel, as opposed to identifying with and staying very stuck in something that is only temporary, because as we know, this is all temporary. I think I want to start this with reading the definition. And the definition of curious is eager to know or learn something and strange or unusual. So I want to start with the first one, eager to know or learn something. That's what we're talking about when we say be curious. Be eager to know or to learn something. And that's not just thinking about it in terms of school. This is be eager to know or learn something about why you feel this way. Be eager to know or learn something about why the simplest thing. Let's remember the light lesson, fully present. If we're fully present or actively noticing, that means we're hopefully being curious about why is this the way that this is? What does this mean? How do I interpret this? And then curious, meaning strange or unusual, is really interesting too. Because if we are actively seeking why something is what it is, it can become strange or unusual because we're seeing it through new eyes. So there's two quotes that I always go to when it has to do with be curious. The first one is a quote by Walt Whitman, which is, be curious, not judgmental. And I love this quote so much. It's such a simple reminder to me to stay curious about something instead of judging it. That goes with people that you meet that say something that maybe sends you the wrong way. Get curious about why they said something like that, as opposed to, now I'm judging this. Get curious about, again, why do I feel like this, instead of judging myself for feeling like this. Get curious about what's going on in the world instead of judging what's going on in the world. Being curious to me is more active than to judge something. To judge, to have judgment on something is very final, in my opinion. To stay curious is a way to stay open and a way to learn more. And by saying to myself, I'm curious about, I am giving myself permission to not know. And I love that. There's so much freedom in not knowing. I find my best conversations happen when I don't know. My best answers to questions a lot of times are, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. The part of curiosity is, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to find out. So it's the actively seeking. Notice, we keep saying the word active. The second quote that I love around curiosity is a quote that I used in my album, my first live show, Awakening, I think in 2012. And I say this in the album. And this quote is a quote by the poet Rumi. And he says, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. Okay. Sell your cleverness. In some translations is sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. To me, that quote encapsulates curiosity, being curious. Sell your cleverness, sell your judgment about something, sell your need to be right, your need to always know, and purchase instead, use this tool, bewilderment, curiosity, looking at things through the eyes of a child, looking at things through purity and innocence. Be curious. Stay curious. So I feel like the most intelligent thing that we can do right now in this time that we're living in is to be curious, to be open to new possibilities. I have been finding that by staying curious, it's relieving an amount of suffering that I could be causing myself unconsciously. If I am deciding that something should be a certain way, there's that word again, should. And you know how I feel about that word should. If I'm shoulding on a situation, meaning I'm saying it should be this, it should be this, I should have this, I am no longer curious about how it could be. I have already decided that this is how it should be. And that, for me, is no way to live. But I will say this too. The days that I catch myself in the shoulding, the days that I catch myself feeling low, which when I go low, instead of pitching my tent, instead of building a home in my woe is me, my feeling of I didn't sign up for this, why is this happening to me, you know, all of that stuff where our brains get on this loop of why me, why me. Instead of building my home in that, I instead get curious of why did I go down? I'm curious of why I went down here. Curious about what is it that I'm supposed to learn? What do you need me to know? And then I get curious of how to feel better. This is not the time that you reach for the easy fix. It's the time you get curious of how to get yourself to a place of wonderment again, as opposed to fear that I live here now. So on my good days and on my bad days, I try to stay curious. That means staying curious in the low, but staying curious about the high points too. Staying curious about why does this make me feel good? So that hopefully that can be something that I use to help myself later when I might need that reminder. So our marination station this week is very simply to ask ourselves, where can I be curious about what's going on, as opposed to having decided that it's this way or this way. When you catch yourself having decided something, when you catch yourself feeling some type of way, unfairness, little triggers, things that are happening, where can you get curious about what's going on in the moment, as opposed to trying to define it by any other means necessary? So I'm really excited about this week and going into this week with the idea of being curious. I'm, you guessed it, curious about what's going to happen in my life and for all of you out there as well. Thank you once again for being curious enough to tune in to a simple light lesson. With your curiosity, you may just inspire someone else to be more curious about their life as well. There's a lot of dark right now, as we feel. There's always darkness. But let's get curious about where we can show up as light. See you next time.